Welcome back from the break. You're still watching This Week, and I'm Somna Sambo. Now, President Bola Tinubu, during the week, returned from his shuttle to the G20 Leaders Summit in India. The president's visit, which was on the special invitation of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, provided opportunities for him to attract global capital and promote increased foreign direct investment in various sectors of the Nigerian economy, especially in the areas of information, communications, technology, ICT, agriculture, oil and gas, electricity, and aviation, with about $14 billion investment commitment from the Indian business community. Now, upon the president's return, Nigerians are beginning to count the gains of Tinubu's high-level roundtable meetings with leading industrialists in the Indian private sector. And to what extent can that quickly start yielding fruits in the private sector to help stimulate the economy and create jobs in line with this, with his renewed hope agenda? Well, to help us take a look at the gains of President Tinubu's mission to the G20 summit in India, we have joining us from our Lagos studio the Vice President of the Corporate and Government Relations at Olam International, Adefeko. He's also the Honorary Consul of Botswana in Lagos State. So good to see you, Mr. Adefeko. I would just want you to just give us a brief as to the sort of investment areas that the private sector in Nigeria is expecting from the commitments made by the Indian business community, about $14 billion of commitment. What specific areas are we hoping to see this financial inflow into?
Good evening, viewers, and thank you very much, Somna. It's important to, before I delve into that, to set the context. G20 was established around about 1999 after the Asian financial crisis by ministers of finance and central bank governors to stem the tide of that crisis in 1999. G20. Again, it's important to know that G20 controls about 85% of global GDP, okay? 75% of global trade, and 2/3 of the world population are members of, G20. But you're now adding the AU to it. That's minus the AU before the AU joined. Now that the AU has joined, it's probably increased. And of course, G20 technically now will now be G21 because the AU has just joined. And that's significant for the continent because the AU comprises of 55 countries. GDP of about 3 trillion, population about 1.4 billion. So what was very important for Africa and Nigeria particularly, being on the sidelines of the G20 summit and trying to attract investments in the neighborhood of about $14 billion in the areas of health, hospitality, oil and gas, petrochemicals, steel, and defense. That's $14 billion coming into the economy will reflate it to a very large extent. And the private sector, as you know, is the engine room of growth for any economy. And what happened in India is a testament to the fact that Nigeria is open for business, and you have the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the Chief Marketing Officer and the Chief Investment Promoter of Nigeria. That's very, very good and very interesting and very heartwarming. So, to a large extent, the business community from India and the business community from Nigeria had what you call a tete-a-tete, sat down, decided and said to themselves, you know what, we want to bring money into the Nigerian economy. Of course, that capital is mobile, capital flows to where it is welcome, and Nigeria says we're open for business, and as the president says, and always seems to say, Nigeria is open for business, all we need is a mindset change.
All right, so just talk to us about the specific areas that you think we will be expecting the huge flows of investments into. I know ICT is one of it, and then, of course, oil and gas. But if you look at steel, too, President Bola Tinubu's first meeting was with Mittal, who owns one of the largest steel plants in the world. Talk to us about how the financial inflow into these sectors could actually help, revamp our steel industry, and then some specific takeaways from that meeting, which you were in attendance in some of the major business meetings there.
Well, major takeaway is that to underscore the importance of steel, don't forget that the president has a minister of steel. Unfortunately, I don't think he made that trip because I don't think that it was still specific. But I think he came with a lean team of ministers that had to do with respective sectors. You had the Minister of Trade, you had the Minister of Finance, you had the Minister of Digital Economy, and of course you had the Minister of Foreign Affairs, based on the fact that it was bilateral. So you had 4 ministers in attendance who were seen to different areas. In the areas of steel, for example, we had the moribund Ajakuta, which seems to have been, I'm talking about Ajakuta since the 1980s. If my memory serves me right, we used to have a steel minister then called Malam Ali Makele. So, you can go on and on. We're talking about dating back to 1980, 81. We've been on that. So we're talking about flat sheets, we're talking about rolling mills, and steel has been a problem for us. And of course, Mittal is very, very big on steel. But, and of course, he had that prior meeting with the president prior to the sideline meetings of the conclave of the Nigeria-India Business Council meetings. So the key takeaways are area of ICT, which India is very strong, and of which Dr. Bosun Tijani, Minister of Communications, Technology and Digital Economy, had meetings with his counterpart, and that is very, very big for India, and it's something that I think is big in Nigeria as well as a service, and it's something I think the 2 countries can benefit from. We have the area of health, we have Skipper, okay. We have the area of, like I said, we've spoken to steel, we've spoken to oil and gas, we've spoken to petrochemicals, where you have Indorama. Some of these companies hitherto had a presence or a footprint in Nigeria. What some of them are doing right now is to just increase, okay, the quantum of investments, to make sure that those investments are not arithmetic, but they're geometric in proportion. But of course, the devil is in the detail. The devil being in the detail is that meetings have been held, commitments have been had. Come back right now, the MDAs and the respective ministries will now fine-tune all this when we come back. So what is important is what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. So tracking should be the order of the day now in terms of the investments that are coming in and how we intend to track it. But for me, I would say it was a very good outing for Mr. President. It was a very good outing for the country. It was a very, very good announcement to the world that we're ready for business, and that Nigeria is open for business as well, and we're open to capital inflows. And of course, what happened yesterday? I was talking about the fact that the G-20 started in 1999 with ministers of finance and central bank governors of from Asia. Okay, after the Asian meltdown. So of course, that just last night the president announced a new governor of the central bank along with his team. So it's important that we have what we call monetary and fiscal policy alignment. Hitherto, we've had monetary and fiscal policy misalignment. You have the Minister of Finance there, Olawale Edun, who is the coordinating Minister of the Economy. Now you have the Central Bank Governor, Olawale Kadeso, who is going to take care of the monetary aspects, while the fiscal aspect will be taken care of by the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy. And of course, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Doris Anite, will be taking care of the trade side of the thing. So you can see that there's a bit of alignment, in the way things are shaping up. It's early days yet, but of course, from the morning you can always predict what the evening will unfold and what night will set.
All right, yeah, we've seen the president's men actually being put in the right place, because the president says he's the chief salesperson of Nigeria, the chief salesman of the country, and he's committed to bringing investments, and that's why he was there himself to ensure that some of these deals were struck. You talked about the Minister of Investment, Doris Uzoka-Anite. She did an opinion piece where she actually stated how prepared Nigeria is to actually attract investments into the country. And let me just quote her. What she said is that we need to fast track the signing of our Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, IPPA, and Economic Cooperation Agreement, ECA, with India. Now, talk to us about this. When investors come into Nigeria, the big fear is that the government may not be able to protect their investments. And of course, we have a Naira that just keeps doing a flip-flop, within the foreign exchange market. How can the minister's wish come to play so that we'll have an investment promotion and protection agreement that actually assures investors that the country means well and nothing will affect their investments?
Well, what you noted from the opinion piece by the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment is that, you know what, hitherto we had a lot of policies, we had a lot of agreements, we had a lot of agreements, trade agreements, bilateral, multilateral, that were just, very haphazard and were not followed to the latter. Of course, you know that there's an agency of government under the which is superintended by which anchors investment promotion in Nigeria. That's NIPC, okay, which is under the Ministry of Trade. And the Minister of Trade has already spoken to the fact that, you know what, all agreements must be respected, but any agreement that is lopsided will be reviewed, and there will be a kind of what you call rejig and rearticulation. So what is important is that very first step of looking at those agreements. Don't forget that we have joined actually the African Continental Free Trade Area, and no man is an island, every man is a piece of the continent. So what is important is to look at this, look at all the loopholes, look at all the areas in which you don't have the positives on the Nigerian side. But with what we have signed, we sign a lot of bilaterals with many countries. But what we do is that we don't follow through some of those bilaterals. We have joint commissions and the likes with many countries of the world, okay? All in the spirit of South-South cooperation, but nothing ever gets done post-talk. So what we need to do is to walk the talk and stop the rhetoric. And it seems that the respective ministers, of course, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu spoke to the fact that he's the captain of the ship, and wherever he anchors, he has his able lieutenants to support him. So that's a good one. I spoke to the fact at the early stage of this interview that the president is the chief investment officer and the chief investment promoter of Nigeria. He leads from the front, which is a very, very good development and a very good example of leading from the front. So what I'm basically saying here is that we have a lot of bilaterals, we have a lot of multilateral agreements signed, but what we need to do is to allow the respective MDAs to handle what needs to be handled. ACFTA, we're there, we're an integral part, we're Africa's largest economy, we're Africa's largest in terms of population, and in the black race, Nigeria is the world's largest black nation. So there are many positives for us which we can bring to bear in the area of ICT, in the area of ICT, which is the ICT and technology, in the area of agriculture, in the area of solid minerals, in the area of oil and gas, and to a large extent as well in the area of creative arts. So those are things that we're looking at and we should look at. And I think it's a step in the right direction. It's instructive as well to let you know that the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is at G77. G77, of course, as the name implies, is an amalgam of 77 countries, developing countries, talking about South-South cooperation again, holding in Cuba. So the executive and the presidency is busy on many fronts, trying to make sure that we attract investments, we reflate the economy, private sector is an anchor for government and a partner in government, which explains why the private sector delegation went with the president on their own. So it's important to note that the private sector was invited to come along with the president, and everybody came with the president to support and to give Philip to say a lot of his ideas. Of course, he's talking about the Renewed Hope agenda, which is what we're all looking forward to. And as we speak, again, tomorrow, the president is off to the United Nations, what is famously known as UNGA, okay, for another 1 week, bilateral and multilateral. So speaking on the sidelines, we're going to meet a lot of, multinational companies to tell them that, we're open for business. Nigeria will provide the enabling environment for you. Just make sure you come in. And of course, don't forget that Nigeria allows capital to come in and, monies to go out as well. So I spoke to the fact that we had monetary and fiscal policy misalignment, but I think we're trying to bridge that right now, and the onus is on us. We need to do that as quickly as possible.
Okay, let's talk about the issues of securing investment here. I'm really focusing on that because as most times some of this foreign direct investment that we get, we actually lose out from it, especially from portfolio investors, because people cannot actually secure their investment so much. Do you think that the international business community thinks that President Tinubu and his government have the capacity to secure their investments better? Tinubu has been working with the Indians, the Shaguris and all of that for a very long period of time. Do you think that this time around, if they bring more investment like we have seen and heard, that Nigeria can be able to protect their investments in a better way than we used to in the past?
Well, I think so. And I think what has happened is, what happened in India was a precursor to show that, you know what, we're open for business. That's why he took the private sector. Normally, when you have this kind of meetings and bilaterals, you usually have governments, sometimes Nigeria going to speak to itself, you know, which is a bit unfortunate because we can speak to ourselves here, back in Nigeria, but we go out of the country to speak to ourselves. But when we go back out to speak to the investment community and tell the investment community that we're open for business, all bottlenecks, all roadblocks will be removed, and that anybody who has any impediments should just let us know. We have one-stop shops here and there with respective ministries. Those ministries and MDAs should be allowed to work. And as long as those ministries and MDAs are allowed to work, it's fine. And I think, based on what I heard from the Indians and from what a lot of the speeches that the president delivered in India were extempore, which is quite impressive, based on the fact that when you give extempore speeches or statements, they're usually straight from the heart and not scripted. So he told the Indian business community that, listen, we've had long histories between each other, and any stumbling block, okay, that is put in the way of their investment, he will make sure that is removed. And the ministers at the respective sessions that they were in gave reassurances of what is to be expected of the new administration. And I think, you can't do better than that. Like I said, it's early days. I think it's 100 days of the government. So, 100 days of a 4-year term, I think we should be a bit patient. He started. Let's see what happens thereafter. So, for me, the devil is in the detail. The MOUs have been signed. $14 billion of investments coming into the country to reflate the economy. $14 billion can do a lot. Like I said, we're talking about arithmetic growth. No, we're talking about geometric. Geometric is usually in 2, 4, 6. Arithmetic is 1, 2, 3. So that's what we need right now. We need geometric growth. Geometric growth that will reflect this economy, that will stabilize the market. And again, confidence is important. And I think with the new central bank governor, I think we'll have what you can call a safe pair of hands, okay? And that's a good omen as he goes into the United Nations international community tomorrow for the 1 week UNGA UN General Assembly Summit. And don't forget that he's speaking on the 19th as well, which I think is one of the earliest times that a Nigerian leader has been given a slot to speak at the UN General Assembly. And he's speaking with President Biden on the sidelines. He's speaking with the president of Comoros, who is the chair of the AU, and so he has a lot of meetings sidelines. So what this signposts is that Nigeria is open for business. And what I think should happen right now is that the business community should make sure that they rally around and make sure that we will have a win-win for everybody. Collaboration, cooperation, very, very important for the organized private sector and government. Because right now, we all know that government can't do everything, but government must enable public-private partnerships, okay? Public-private partnerships without encumbrances. Because what we've always had before now, is there's too much bureaucracy. A lot is laden with bureaucracy. People ask questions, but the questions they ask take 2 years, 3 years, answering one, moving from point A to point B, is so laborious. And you ask yourself, you can't attract investment that way. So I think there's a fundamental mindset change, shift of emphasis, shift of philosophy. And I think what the organized private sector will do or should do right now is to just continue to partner with government, but hold government accountable as well to do their own bit. Enabling environment is what is important. If you provide your enabling environment, no stumbling blocks, then it's easy. There are a lot of things. We're speaking about power. Look at South Africa. South Africa generates 60,000 megawatts. We are struggling with between 10 and 20,000 megawatts. And we're asking ourselves, this power issue is critical, very, very critical. Petrochemical is very critical. Of course, you've heard about what Indorama is going to do. You've heard about what the guys are going to do on the steel side. So these are sine qua non for development. And I think it's something that we should support we should make sure that we hold the Indian businessmen who have promised to invest in the country to account.
All right, just before I let you go, job creation is at the heart of this investment that the president is looking for. We have a burgeoning youth population. But of course, when you have people like the Indians and Chinese coming into the country, there are always fears here and there that they bring into the country their citizens to actually undertake certain jobs that Nigerians can actually do for themselves. And we've seen especially the Indians abusing some of these opportunities. As someone who is a key player in the private sector, how do we try to prevent such situations whereby foreigners also bring in investment alongside with their citizens to take some of our jobs, and then of course the investments will be here and people won't have jobs? How do we ensure that the Indians, the Chinese and all of that do not abuse such privileges? Very quickly.
Well, what is very important as a nation is for you to put your house in order. Prior to now, back in the 60s, 70s, and probably early 80s, we used to have vocational schools, okay, vocational colleges, where we used to take care of some of these things that the Indians and the Chinese bring, the workmen they bring into the country. But right now, as we speak, we don't have those vocational centers anymore. I don't know what has happened to the vocational schools we used to have. So we need to try and work on that. So Ministry of Education, Ministry of Labour and Productivity, Ministry of Digital Economy, Technology and innovation, those are the kind of things that I think we should work on. As long as we have the population, but skills acquisition and training, capacity building is very important. So I think that's what we need to work on, and we need to work on that quickly. Because what happens is, if they bring in the investments, if there are no Nigerians to man some of those facilities, what do? You bring them in. So what we need to do is that we need to take care of our own house, put our own house in order by making sure we train and retrain. So capacity building is very important. And again, if you bring the Indians and the Chinese, you must force them, technically speaking, to do what you call skills transfer. Okay? But skills transfer is not offered a la carte. You have to be ready for it as well. So that's my take.
How about protective laws? Don't we need protective laws in terms of immigration and all of that to ensure that, for example, the expatriate quota, which some Indian companies are known to be abusing, are really strengthened very quickly? How do we ensure that those protective laws are strengthened?
I very much agree with you. I very much agree with you that yes, you should strengthen the laws on the immigration side with expatriate quota. What is the use in having expatriate quota? Not granting expatriate quota to company A or company B from country X or country Y when there's no local to do it. If there's a local to do it, of course, why not? But if there's none, what do? So you can't be protectionist on one hand and not be ready on the other hand, okay? Because again, the WTO rules are important, World Trade Organization. You can't be protectionist. The world is a global village right now. So everybody, the same skills we have as well, we export in the area on the creative industry side and Nollywood side. It's the same thing that happens. So for me, I think we should just be ready. Let's put our house in order, do skills transfer and training for a lot of those areas in which the industries are. So have vocational schools and colleges, technical colleges that can offer some of these things, and we'll make sure we'll ramp up that, and of course unemployment will be a thing of the past for our teeming youth.
All right. Adefeko is the Vice President in charge of Corporate and Government Relations at Olam International, and he's also the Honorary Consul of Botswana in Nigeria. And I sure hope you enjoyed yourself in India, because I saw those pictures where you were almost everywhere with the government delegation. And we just hope to see those kind of situations in the future when government is going to seek for business. It goes alongside business executives like you. We must thank you immensely for joining us on the program, and we hope to have you some other time.